I've discovered the magic formula that humanity was never able to work out, but I figured it out. And this love is real. This love is real. Love conquers all. Nothing is going, ain't no stopping us now.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Prophetic Mentality Podcast. I am your host, Amr Mabrouk. I am joined by my co-host today, Munir. We have a very special guest, Shaykh Suhail Mulla. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah, doing great, man.
Alhamdulillah.
Glad to be here.
Very happy to have you today post Jum'ah prayer. Alhamdulillah. So today's topic, inshallah, we're just going to jump right into it. There was a seminar that happened at a local masjid here a few weeks back. It was targeted towards the youth, dealing with the topic of how to find a spouse, what to do when you find a potential, kind of in that realm of things. So we'll just start off right away with some questions. And nowadays I feel like there's a lot of maybe confusion. A lot of new ways people are interacting online and offline. Boundaries are coming into question.
True.
What was not okay, or what was seen as definitely a no-go zone 5-10 years ago when I was in college and high school is now just seen as a typical norm.
True.
So, Sheikh, in your experience, I know you are also you're a chaplain at IOK, so you're dealing with a lot of youth. You are a counselor with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I'm going to let you struggle through it.
You're going to let me? Oh, man. I'm totally blanking right now. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Not at all.
You don't know?
No.
Oh, Shaykh, come on.
I'm the director at the Khalil Center.
Director at the Khalil Center. Masha. Okay, see, that was my mistake. I should have done better prep. Director at Khalil Center here in the Valley.
Correct.
That's where we're located. See? Okay, I know that.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
I guess I didn't know that. I forgot.
Yeah, see, okay. So Shaykh, in your experience right now, what are you seeing going on? Are people just like, what kind of questions are people coming to you with? What kind of confusions are you dealing with people? What's the overall atmosphere like?
Yeah. I mean, I only see things. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu salam ala Rasulillah. First of all, barakallahu feekum. May Allah bless you both for putting this together, talking about stuff that is important to the community, and and having this platform and this format for us to be able to engage in these important conversations. So as far as premarital interactions are concerned, I see a lot of stuff on the college campus. I see certain things. In my work at Khalil Center, I see other things. So and I'm not online, so I don't know what the heck is going on online.
I can enlighten you later.
Don't bother.
You're better off.
Don't bother, man. I'm good, man. I like to be free of worries and anxieties. But as far as the college campus is really interesting, right? Because it's the first time kids, young people, have the ability to be away from home. Somehow, because now there's no adults around, they're not in the masjid youth group space. There's the feeling that, okay, well, we can interact freely and do whatever we want with each other, guys and girls, and they try to do it with some level of consciousness, and okay, they're not trying to break all bounds, but just the very fact that they're in that space brings to them what they feel a certain liberation. And so what happens as a consequence on the college campus is guys and girls, they interact, they start talking with each other. They don't let their parents know, right? And they talk on various platforms. Those that are at least trying to, in their mind, keeping it halal, they have this, you're familiar with the term halal gap.
Yes.
So, you know,
Is it
the
6
social
feet,
distancing
6 feet
gap,
apart?
yeah. So, you know, they have these notions that they try to justify their actions with, in terms of that they feel they're following through with, and so on. But anyways, but then they get themselves into sticky situations. That's the nature of that world, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is, sometimes when they get to a point now, well, wait a second, this is deep, and we need to tell our parents, but we don't really want to tell our parents, because if we do, they're going to say, why are you talking to people? And they get into all this kind of stuff. Or even worse, you know, they get into it, and then there's negative consequences. We've seen, unfortunately, where, you know, there's been, we've seen girls get pregnant.
Uh-oh.
And you know, other where there's a relationship that went too far, and now one side is deeply vested, but the other side is like, wait a second, I shouldn't have went that far, and now I need to back off, but I don't know how. And so they, you know, all of these different things that happen, and so if young people don't have guidance beyond just their own notions of what they think is right and wrong.
Yeah.
And because the whole world everywhere else, I mean, they're in college, man. You know, that's the time when everybody's exploring everything. And so they fall victim to all of that kind of stuff, right? That's one realm of my world that I deal with.
Yeah.
And so, you know, part of it is education, just educating college kids on the campus about what are proper boundaries. This is always the biggest lecture that's attended every year on college campus is the gender interaction lecture every year, right?
I think we go there thinking, well, I just didn't say we, but maybe back then.
I'm gonna go there.
Back in the day, right? Like,
You're gonna find your spouse there.
yeah, everyone thinks you're gonna go and you're gonna meet your spouse.
Oh, that's why they go there?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm naive, brother.
You want to hear something funny? Someone reached out to me about the Hawthorne online seminar that we were a part of, and they said, you know, I was actually kind of bummed. I thought I was gonna get to meet somebody, and I was like, it was over Zoom.
Really?
Like, how were you? Like, were you expecting a split session with someone else? It's like I zoned out most of the time. I thought I was gonna meet a girl. I was like, that's not what was
there you go.
advertised.
If you needed proof, there it was.
You gotta learn something before you get engaged in that space.
Then get engaged,
Yeah.
and then learn about it. So Shaykh, I'll build off of this. So this is how I was taught. I come from a big Muslim community, by the way. This is from the small things I learned and picked up together. My parents never said it explicitly. I knew dating's haram. Like that much I understood.
Okay.
And then I was also told, you get married. You know, we don't date, we get married. But in between that, I was never told, how do you get from point nothing to married? I was like, that's not possible. You cannot just get married.
Yeah.
So these youth, obviously, I think a lot of them are well-intentioned. I mean, the fact that they keep that gap in public interactions, or I think at first all of them are genuine. Most of them. Some of the guys, I will say, probably are not genuine.
True.
But many of them are. You know, they're Muslim. They know that much. They go to the gender interaction talk, yes, to find someone, but at the same time to be like, I have to learn how to talk to that person.
Yeah.
So what's the advice you give to someone who says, look, I know, okay, dating, you told me is haram. I already dated someone, but like, okay, maybe I'll have to repent from that one. But how do I move on from here?
Right. Yeah. So I actually take issue with that statement that dating is haram. So let's define dating, right?
Great.
And
Okay.
because that's
Perfect.
when we talk to young people that way, it's really like you said, well, what am I supposed to do? How is this supposed to work? Doesn't make sense. I'm not like you, mom and dad. I'm just gonna, you know, we see each other one time and somehow, you know, the next day they get married. That's not me, right? So I take issue with that sort of phraseology, right?
Okay.
And so we start off by telling, well, how do you define dating, right?
Yes.
If you define dating by a free, open engagement, do with whomever you want, whatever you want, whenever you want, of course that's haram. There's no such, you know, Islam doesn't, you know, it has nothing to do with the way we see gender actions. But if you mean by dating a process where two young people can get to know one another before marriage, while keeping the halal gap, while keeping themselves out of a situation where they're alone with one another, but yet they have the ability to conversate with one another and, you know, learn about each other, no problem. Right? And that's a must. I mean, to expect young people to do things the way that of the old generation does, it's not going to happen. Nor is it even advisable necessarily from an Islamic standpoint. So, you know, just at least starting off with that point of education, that yes, you have the right to get to know somebody before you get married and all of that. Well, then comes the next conversation. Well, how, you know,
Right,
under
exactly.
what platform, what format, how do we do that, and all of that. And that's a whole nother conversation, right? In the day in which, and I don't claim to understand a lot of these platforms. Maybe you guys can enlighten me, brother.
Instagram,
I don't know.
TikTok, yeah. I'm probably behind a couple
Muzmatch,
generations.
Minder, Tinder.
Oh, yeah.
All this stuff, man.
So yeah, I mean, Minder and what, Muzmatch, they're essentially Tinder. So you see someone's picture, and you swipe right, I guess, for I do think they're nice, or swipe left for no. And you know, I'm assuming I don't have
start
that.
talking.
Yeah, and then you have
in a group chat.
Yeah.
you have a bio, right?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming most of the time people are just like ugly, pretty. You know, that's your first impression. And once you meet somebody, then
And it's based purely on their picture.
100%. You have a bio, but I'm willing to bet that majority of the time
That's
it's-
problematic, right?
Of course.
The fact that these platforms were even devised, perhaps they were well intentioned, but that's not where we start. For us, at least.
No.
Yeah, looking at somebody's picture is part of the equation. Of course, you got to be attracted to somebody when you're looking for them at marriage, but that's not the starting point. And if people look to that to be the starting point, and you fall into that psychology from the get-go, I see that as a very, a problematic look at the shallowness of who we have become, right, as people. I mean, sorry to go philosophical on you, but
No,
I mean,
this is we got to get to the root of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming for most of the guys, if we believe the statistics apply to the Muslim community as well, then a lot of these guys may have some sort of pornography issue, right?
And this is so interesting, man, right? So I have a lot of guys that come to me and they say, Shaykh, she's good. I like her on paper. She's perfect, but I'm not fully physically attracted to her. But this makes sense, if this is the context by which they're being prompted to kind of engage, like from the society around them. Of course, that's what's being thrown out as left and right. Women, and inappropriately sexualized in every single platform that we look at.
Yeah.
And from, I mean, even, I don't watch many movies, but, I'll watch, what do you call it? Marvel.
Oh, there we go. Avengers.
Stuff, right? Avengers and all that stuff. It's cool. There's not much cursing going on.
It's PG-13.
But the PG-13 is violence. Cool. I can deal with that. But the women are sexualized. Why? Why do they have to be that? They're superheroes, but they're only superheroes if their body looks a certain way. This and that. So on every level, right? The point is on every level. And so if we go into it with that mindset to begin with, which young people are a product of their environments, that's naturally the case.
Yeah.
It's a difficult point to start off with. And there needs to be some reprogramming, some wiring that we need to physically go out and do, right? That hardware is switching around that we need to and that needs to be an active kind of thing. But the problem is just so heavy. That stuff is so heavy.
So you're currently advising against Muzmatch and Minder. I'm
not saying that. I don't claim to even. I've never looked at those platforms. I probably should, but I don't.
You don't want to make a profile, otherwise.
I know people have been married through it.
I'm sure.
And actually, I listened to an interview with the founder of
which one?
Muzmatch.
Okay.
I can't remember which one, man.
It's all the same. I think it was the same.
He was actually very genuine, like mashallah, Muslim, practicing.
Okay.
I was shocked when I heard him talk about it and say, like, look, I know what people will try and do with this thing, but that is not what I'm trying to facilitate. He was very clear on his intentions. I'm like, all right, mashallah, may Allah reward you for what good you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I know people who and another thing is people are desperate. When you get to the Minder, Tinder stuff, that's usually post college, by the way. In college,
Yes.
most people don't do that because they have 1,000 girls in front of them in MSA. Like, I know my category is here, my age, my culture, my education level. When you leave college, like, well, who am I going to find? I'm at work with kafir number 1, 2, and 3. I'm not going to marry them. So I got to find someone. So you go online. And I don't know a lot of people, maybe it's not those apps particularly.
Yeah, I'm not saying
but the
online is.
space.
I'm not saying online is a no go. Like you know, we have
It shouldn't be your first.
half my dean. You know, we have half my dean.
Right.
Where you try to filter out by interest or
Right,
by
right.
experience, and then it's like, okay,
There are correct ways to do it. Yeah.
yeah, but this is just like yes, no, and it's the illusion of choice actually makes you more miserable.
That's a problem,
know?
man. That's a problem. I mean, what are we? You know, I mean, if there's 100, and I'm sorry, I don't talk about things this way, but this is what it is, right? If there's 100 girls on that thing, and I'm flipping through one, of course I'm going to pick the 10 prettiest. I'm not going to, but is that the criteria I should be using?
No.
And if that's the only thing that's presented to me, what else do I have to go off of? And so we're being made to think that way.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. It's nice that the dude had a good intention, but you got to do it right too.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you just do it the way they do it, you're just following them into the lizard hole. And that's not, who said that's our way? Right?
Very.
I feel like for the girls also it becomes more stressful because now you know, okay, if it's my picture, you're gonna put the best your best looking photo. You may want to pose a certain way that you may not actually be
Doesn't
comfortable
befit
doing.
you.
And as a man, you swipe right and you meet her and you talk to her, she becomes your wife. Now in your head, you know that some other creepo may have a screenshot of that. Some other guy may have swiped, and you don't know how many. You know how many guys have looked at this photo like, oh yeah, like look at this one, I like this one.
Yeah.
That's you don't want to start off like that.
Yeah. So we do have to look at more wholesome ways of going about it, right?
Yeah.
That's what we gather from that, right?
No.
And there are ways. I mean, there are these different other websites, like you said, Hafardeen. There's this, I'm not trying to advertise or promote anybody, but there are some other ones that have come up. I was looking into getting into that field because everybody comes and says, can you help? We're looking for somebody for our daughter. We're looking for somebody to look out for us. Or they come to you, or, I'm graduating college. I need to find somebody, and can you help? And then, at one part of me is thinking, wow, do I have a responsibility here? Should I be keeping a file for people's? And, and then so I actually started, and I had a idea in my head as to how I wanted to actualize this. I actually registered the website name called hookmeupshaykh.com. But I didn't have the wherewithal to see it all the way through. But the idea was, so this is how the old system works, right? There's this old auntie system, right? Where the auntie in the locality, she knows who's available. She has a little kind of file of her own, and I think we need an updated version of that, because that provides a buffer. And from my understanding, and so what I was planning to do is have, me and my wife would both be sorting through individuals, and they would come through us. We'd interview them, we'd talk to them, get to know them.
Yeah.
And then look ourselves into who we have to kind of be able to, that
you kind of play matchmaker.
Yeah, in a sense.
Here's someone who you may.
The problem is when you shortcut all of that.
Yeah.
You're shortcutting yourself. You're selling yourself short, right?
No.
The problem is people think those are the only means by which they can achieve. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. But people are just looking for the quickest fix. And that's...
Would you call that an arranged marriage? That's what people... When they hear that, they say, so you're just going to throw someone at me and then that's the person I marry?
I know arranged marriage. I'm
arranged to meet.
Yeah, arranged to meet, and then talk to them at will. Get to know them and get to like them for who they are.
Yeah.
Is it? Some people say, in Desi culture they call it arranged marriage versus love marriage.
Yeah,
right?
that's that dichotomy you don't want to.
Why do we have to categorize things that way?
Yeah.
I don't like those sort of old world adages or usages. So you get to know somebody, you get to meet them. If you get along, one conversation goes well, 2 goes well, 3, you start connecting, you starting to become a little emotionally attached. That's natural. I don't see that as a problem, right?
As long as you're doing it the right way.
As long as you're doing it the right way, right?
So actually, maybe you can help us. People are hearing this and saying, "Do it the right way. Do it the right way." What does that mean?
What is the right way?
Let's say we have a mutual friend. We say, we know a girl. Your wife knows someone. I know some guy. We put them together. We say, hey, I think you guys could be a potential match.
Yeah.
Does that mean we put them in a group chat and then we let them talk by themselves freely and they start? How does it? They put them in calls?
That's a good question. Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think that's all contextual, right? If two people are 30 years old and
they've been through the ringer, maybe.
Yeah, and they've been around, and there's they can start talking to each other. If they have some sort of regulated, formatted way in which why not? If their parents are fine with it, their families are fine with it, or
that's probably key. Families are involved with it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to start talking to somebody and your parents, in their mind, look, you're only going to marry somebody from your village, from where you're from, and this and that. That's a problem if parents come with that perspective, and they often do. But don't jump into something and then find yourself in a place where you're gonna have to go through all this drama to get where you break those walls down first with your parents. Like, look, I don't want to marry somebody from Pakistan or Egypt or this or that, wherever you're from. You want to see somebody, you want me to marry my cousin? No, mom, dad, I don't want to do that stuff, right? That's not who I'm looking for I don't want to marry somebody from back home. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But have that conversation with your parents up front and push for what you want. And maybe they'll push back at you and you tell them, no, mom, dad, I'm not going to do that. As opposed to getting involved in something, then it's just a big mess. And, that's a whole nother set of problems. Right?
People get emotionally involved, attached first. Then they come back and say, I'm not marrying from your country because I already got a girl.
Exactly.
I'll tell you that part.
And I think, even if your parents do push back and you learning to work through it is actually beneficial to you. Like going through some struggle to toughen you up, to be a man, to get married, right? Having tough conversations in general. Yeah. I think it's a positive thing. I mean, don't just look at it as my parents are oppressing me. Like, your parents want what's best
deal
for
with
you.
Life. I mean, deal with life, it straight up. I mean, you don't be going around behind people's backs and doing it. It just makes you're making more problems for yourself.
Yeah. And I guess I can make a comment in defense of uncles and aunties. They'll say, no, we need you to. So I'm Lebanese, right? So let's say, imagine my parents said you can only marry Lebanese. And you'd say like, man, why should you listen to that? That sounds so racist or backwards. But think of it from their perspective. If I were to marry a Pakistani, let's say, her family only speaks Urdu. Let's even imagine that. Like they're just so, like, what do we call fob, I guess. They only speak Urdu. My parents are so Arab, they only speak Arabic. So now when the parents meet, they're both speaking in broken English. They have no relationship. They don't like each other. They're afraid, like, when you have a kid, what language are they speaking? I want them to be able to, I want my grandkids to speak with me. Yeah. Their grandkids want to speak with them. Yeah. So it's not just that. They're thinking also a little more long-term sometimes. I mean, there's also sometimes they're wrong completely. Like they're just being racist. But otherwise, they care about their grandchildren or the future and the coming together of two families, because it's more than just you and the spouse. So that's the caveat I want to just put out there, because not every time they say my country only, it's not them just being racist. Right. It's actually they're thinking about how this comes together. Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, but at the same time, a young person, you got to advocate for yourself, and don't wait till you get caught up in some stuff before you, and now you have to battle.
And then it gets emotional.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? This one is, what's your take on guys who want to marry like Helichiteb? They want to marry from people of the book, right? Like, she's Christian, she's all good though, right? Like, do you think that's okay, or you think that's a bad idea?
So number one, if that's people's thought, like, meaning that theoretically that's what they want to do, they haven't actually met somebody, and that's what they're saying I want to do, that's a problem. Right, that's a problem. Like, no, I don't want to deal with Muslims no more. That's a problem, right? Okay. But usually that's not the case. Usually they met somebody, and now like, okay, I need to make it halal, and we already fell in love. Or
it's a brown guy, he found a white chick. Like,
exactly,
like, honest about it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a whole nother deal, right? That has to do with allowing yourself to get into that space to begin with. Now you're talking about going into intervention mode and trying to help people through those scenarios, right? So when that happens, that needs to be dealt on with the case by case.
So right? I'm saying in general, this is not something you recommend for. No. Okay.
Yeah. No, so if you have the ability to choose who you want to marry, there's no reason to look outside of the Muslim community. Number one, if you marry a Muslim woman, and by the way, the only option here is that a Muslim man can marry a non-Muslim woman from Ahlul Kitab, but not the other way around, right? A
Yes.
Muslim woman cannot marry a Christian man or Jewish man or whatever it may be. So anyways, but let's take that scenario. Number one, there's plenty of beautiful women in the Muslim community. I'm talking about beauty in terms of their physical beauty, in terms of their internal beauty. Number two, you want the mother of your children to raise your children as Muslim.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
You want, number three, Allah tells us, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, guide us on the straight path. That straight path that's taking you to Allah. You need a companion to take you there. And if you get married to somebody who's outside of, who has a different worldview than you do, they may be trying to take you off of that path. You need somebody to hold your hand and take you down that path, right?
They ain't gonna wake you up for Fajr.
No,
It's majority of the time some people who maybe have a weaker religiosity or not as good of an understanding in the faith are the ones trying to pursue and
usually what happens,
right?
they just get caught up.
Yeah,
People
or
get
they
caught
get-
up.
yeah.
You meet somebody at work, at school, whatever. You start getting close. You don't have proper boundaries, and you get caught up. Right, your heart takes you a certain. That's what usually happens.
I mean, I'm trying to think of all the interfaith marriages I know, their kids. I can't think of one that's like, mashallah, their kids are on the haqq. Because every time it's like, you're already wishy-washy. You got married to someone who's not of your faith. They're not helping you out. And the kids are just confused. Like completely, they're not Muslim.
Yeah, of all the ones I know, the kid grows up non-Muslim.
I mean, I've seen some
100%.
stupid stuff. Now I'm gonna be real, right? I've seen some stupid stuff in my life, right? So my parents are from India.
Okay.
So we're of Desi background, right? Young Desi people, a lot of them grow up culturally.
Okay.
So they'll meet Hindu women, right? Or vice versa.
They're hanging out in the ISA.
Hindu men meeting Muslim women, right? All that stuff. Yeah. ISA, I guess.
ISA, yeah. PSA is good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe. I guess maybe. So anyways, and those things happen. They happen a lot actually in the Muslim community. And I've heard some stupid conversations. I mean, I've seen it in my own extended family where a guy, he met a Hindu girl and we said to them, what are you going to, when your wife gets pregnant 3 years, 4 years from now and you start having kids, what are you going to teach them? And they said, we're going to teach them both. So you're going to teach them there's one God, you're going to teach them there's 100 gods or 1,000,000 gods at the same time. And then they're like, is you going to tell them, okay, one day worship Allah, there's no image, there's nothing for you, just sit and pray, make sujood. The next day you're going to say, sit in front of some, I don't want to be inappropriate in my
fire worshiper.
You guys can say don't put them. Yeah, so
I'll say it. It's fine. No, don't marry a Hindu. What are you doing?
Yeah. So and people come, and why did they do that? Because they have to justify. They fell in love. Their hearts got connected. Now they go into this justification mode.
Yeah.
And that's the argument you always hear. We'll teach them both. No, we're gonna we'll let them choose. We'll let them choose. Or they said, no, we'll teach them Islam. I'm gonna be sure. Well, you're the father. The mother is the one who's going to be primarily taken care of. So how is that going to happen? Yeah. Right. So people don't think, man. That's what it comes down. People fall in love. Yeah. They don't think. Their hearts take them. Their hearts are in control, and they're not. Right. Their brain is gone.
And this loops back to what we were talking about in the beginning, how important it is to start off your quest for marriage in the correct way. Because if you take that first step in a good way, then you just naturally won't fall into these pitfalls. Alhamdulillah, right? That's
So Shaykh, how do you advise, because you're a counselor in this regard, students are coming up to you and they say, look, I'm in deep. Like, what's and I can guarantee you, someone listening to this, actually many people listening to this are in deep. What's the first step? How do you get out of this? Yeah. Like, it's another human being on the other side. I can't just not text them back forever.
Yeah. It's valid, man. It's a good question.
A good answer.
Yeah. You want, the thing is this, you have the intellect and you have the emotional,
the heart
realms that people deal with, have to kind of navigate. When the emotions guide them and intellect, like I just said a minute ago, is thrown out the window, you can get taken anywhere. Your heart can be pulled any which direction. But when you have, like you said earlier, solid principles that you stand by and that you're going to regulate your life by, you're in control of where you're going. Now, what do you happen when you're already in deep? What do? You got to start using your brain. You got to start saying, well, wait a second, what is my life going to look like? Where am I going? What am I doing? How is this going to happen? How does this make sense? How is this logical? Maybe I should talk to some people who know. Maybe I should talk to some, my big brothers in the community, my uncles, my Shaykh. Maybe I need to find out how this is going to look, right? As opposed to thinking, I've discovered the magic formula that humanity was never able to work out, but I figured it out. And this love is real. This love is real. Love conquers all. Nothing is going, ain't no stopping us now. Nothing will detract us from our love. And you let your heart take you. Yeah. Use your brain. Use the gift that Allah has given you. The gift that distinguishes us from other creatures is not the heart. It's the intellect. No. Or it's that intellectual heart, if you will. Yeah. Right? No. The qalb. In Islamic, understanding, is the place where we make decisions based on how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to make decisions. And so use that.
Can I add one thing? This was something I heard at another seminar. I don't remember who said it, but a similar question was asked, and the speaker said, make dua that you fall out of love. Allah controls your heart. So just, that's where you have to consciously use your head to make dua for it, even though it's your heart doesn't want it. But it's like, this is not good for me. Yeah. And I love you, but I don't want to.
You know what's so interesting, man? I was talking with someone recently, and they're saying, and they just fell out of a relationship.
There we go.
And they told me, and they're struggling with it emotionally now. And they told me, they says, after I fell out of that relationship, my salah struggled. Ooh. I struggled with he was solid on his salah and everything we're doing, but then after, why? Because he said, while I was in that relationship, most of my dua was related to her. So interesting. Ya Allah, let me, be with this woman. Ya Allah, let this work out. That sister he was talking to had a lot of issues. And there was a lot of resistance and different things. Ya Allah, let this happen. I want this to happen. This is good for me. This is going to be good for me. Make this happen. But then it didn't happen. Well, now what? So it had this spiritual negative effect on him. So when you involve with somebody, put your trust in Allah. Let Allah take it. Let Allah take you where He wants it to see you go, not where you think it's best for you to go. Allah knows, and you don't know, right?
Yeah. Just to echo off that, I have a friend. He's not the most religious guy, but he's our age. He's a young guy, and he decided that he wanted to marry the girl he was talking to after meeting her for the third time. So he spent 3 hours with her, and on the third meeting, it was chaperoned. He was like, "Okay, she's the one." Okay. And when he told his friends, I heard it. I was like, "That's kind of crazy. Like, you only spent 3 hours with somebody?" He's like, "No, khalas, she fits, I checked off everything on the list. Now the only thing I have to worry about is if our personalities match. So I'm just going to keep going. And if the connection is there, then that's it. Khalas. It's just it's a very simple way of kind of looking at things, right?
Homeboy put his priorities in order, right? Yeah. He laid out what he wants first, as opposed to getting caught up first. Yeah. And then trying to make things fit.
Yeah, he was asking all the big questions, like, how many kids do you want? Are you okay staying home? Are you, and she's asking big questions too. It's like the first meeting, you just want to chill, maybe.
This is the smartest thing you can do. So, young guy, you want to get married? I mean, you can chime in. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Yeah. But I advise people. I say, look, here are the questions, and there are nice lists online for Muslims, like the 100 questions, premarital questions, and none of them have to do with what movies do you like, what's your favorite color, none of that garbage. It's are you going to work or not? You going to work right now? Great. But when we have a kid, are you still going to work? Yeah. How many kids do you want? Yeah. Do you not want kids? Well, and you have to have your red flags. So I have my 5 questions. I cannot compromise on this. My personality will never, ever change on these things. Yeah. I want kids. She says, I don't want kids. You say, Assalamu alaikum. You're a great woman. That's it. God bless you. I'm not going to get involved with you at all. That's it. And I move on with my life. And you know what else? No one has to know you even spoke to her. Let's put that in there too. You don't have to make it a big, I'm courting this woman right now. And it didn't work out. No one needs to know. Right. It doesn't have to be that big deal.
Well, it's like, it's like this. When in Islam, when you have a nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
what are you supposed to do when you wake up?
Turn to your left.
Turn to your left.
Right.
Like dry blow. Yeah.
And then what? You don't share it with anybody,
True.
right? You don't share it with anybody. Why? Because you don't want to keep that alive. You don't need to keep those emotions alive. You don't need to keep that pain that you felt alive. You talk to somebody, like you said, if you announce it to the whole world and we're talking and you just talk like 2 or 3 times, do that stuff like in private, man. Talk to somebody, and because what happens as soon as you do i'lan, like you make it public, then there's pressure. There's this pressure that you feel, and you feel now you're more invested, and people look, and people from the outside. So do your thing, talk to somebody, but as soon as you, as soon as you start, echoing it. You're making it more real within yourself, and you're making the emotions deeper within yourself more than they need to be. Whereas if you do it and it's business, like you said, right? We're talking to each other for the purpose of getting married. Like you said, check off all your boxes. Boxes look good. Now let's see if our personalities match. Alhamdulillah, you're on your path.
Yeah.
But not the other way in which how people deal with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to spend endless nights on the phone.
Yes.
You don't need essays in text messages. You don't need to be there with her by herself.
No.
All this stuff you could do chaperone. My wife and I, every time we went out before we had Helichiteb, someone was with us. Her mom was there. Like, she'd be like kind of off to the side, and
But she's there. She sees you. She doesn't have to hear your conversation, but she sees you.
We do mundane things like, miniature golfing. You can go miniature golfing. You can go have a cup of coffee. No one is saying you can't do that. Just
someone's there.
Someone's there. Yeah.
Someone who fears God and will strike you down, like the mom or the dad.
Well, we did the same thing. It's funny, we did the same. Me and my wife.
Oh, you did miniature
before
golfing?
we got married. Probably, I don't remember. Actually, they took me to Magic Mountain, and then and I failed that test, man. I was done at the end of the day. But her little sister would go with us everywhere, right? Poor girl still has resentment to this day about having to tag along with us everywhere. But it's a beautiful thing, man. And that's our way, right? That's our way. People have a problem with the concept of, we just want to be like everybody else. As Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ told us in many instances, Khalif al-Yahud wa Nasara. Khalif al-Yahud. Be different than them.
No.
Be different than them. We're not concerned about conforming to societal norms if those norms aren't in conformity with our worldview, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, it may be weird in front of your friends, but who are your friends to begin with, right? So it's all tied into one another.
That just hit real deep for me.
Yeah.
It was my coworkers. That's they're the ones wondering like what's going on. And you'd explain, and they're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I've been dating my boyfriend for 10 years.
17,000 years.
Oh, one of my coworkers told me, what, you're gonna get married? Don't you want to buy a house first? I was like, what are you like with her? Like buy a house with her, like not me personally, like him and his.
Yeah, you're not the one who tells me how to live, I don't take my sharia from you.
And he's like, oh, you don't want to test drive the car? I was like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, yeah, that's how they think.
And the thing I would advise for any young guy who's saying like, okay, look it, I don't know if this whole Muslim courting system is going to work out. Like, just what's the alternative? Think about how it's working. How are white people dealing with it?
Non-Muslims,
non-Muslims in general. Like, okay, so you talk to this girl. I guess it's all emotional, by the way. They're getting divorced very fast. Muslims are catching up with them now in the divorce rates. I wonder why. Maybe they're following a certain process. You're emotionally involved. You never get married. Sorry, you move in together. You're moving in together means 10,000 other things are happening behind closed doors. Doesn't mean you moved in together. So you've already gotten physically involved beyond repair. And then you're dating for 5 years, move in after whatever many years, get engaged. 2 years later, we're going to get married. You finally get married, then get divorced. And then you have to start that over again. Or like, let's say they break up after 6 years. The woman is destroyed. Like that's 6 years of her life. And for her emotionally, it's like way more taxing. The guy is also destroyed. He'll bounce back quicker. And then you have to repeat that process another 5-6 years. Like, are you crazy?
I just can't imagine being in a relationship with someone that long and then just saying, I break up with you. And then you pick up your stuff and leave. Like, how do you do that?
from the house because you moved in together.
Well, that's why there's so much drama, brother. When those things do hit, right? That's why people go back and forth to each other a billion times before, because of the emotions.
So I think this is a good segue. Assuming, the beginning part of the discussion, we were talking about kind of the correct way to meet somebody, and I think kind of what we dialed in is try to avoid too much image-based decisions. Right, try to find out who someone really is. Court them in a way that's honorable to you and her, and get your families involved. Make sure everyone's on the same page. Don't get emotionally involved before you figure out if it's feasible or not. You know what I mean? Right. So assuming all that is good, and now we met somebody. This is where we go into the next part. The importance of that. Intercommunication during the engagement period, right? So, Shaykh, I understand you also with Khalil Center, you guys do provide, like premarital counseling services. So, I'm not even married yet. Why do I need to go to counseling, right? So, what's up with that?
Yeah, the way I explain it to people is because as Muslims, we have a certain way in which we engage in getting to know somebody for marriage. Mm-hmm. That's why you need, and because the world around you engages in those intimate spaces in a completely different way, and you're trying to navigate all of that, that's exactly why you do need, why you would benefit from premarital coaching or counseling.
So you're saying because things here are not like they are back home, society is not set up in a way to promote a certain mode of action, that here we need premarital counseling to kind of coach us in that right path, right?
So this is so let me explain it further. I've dealt with I've dealt with marriage on every end of the spectrum, right? Before marriage, conduct marriages, do marriage counseling, marriage coaching, divorce mediation, and all of this stuff. I've seen a lot of marriages go wrong for simple, stupid stuff, right?
Okay. Such as?
I don't want to name specific things because I don't want to, people to. Okay. But for somebody, for some things related to people's, perspectives on money. Okay. If they had known that about the other party beforehand, they wouldn't have, they wouldn't have engaged this far about people's, absolute, non-negotiable physical traits, right? And so it's really interesting. Some people, like, once they find out what their wife really looks like or husband really looks like, or certain things, other things about them, they don't want to, and that happens in the first or second week of marriage.
Right? That's not good.
No, that's not good. So there's a lot of things. I mean, that's premarital coaching may not help in that particular regard. That's another problem. But if you have certain things that are absolutely like your pet peeve that you won't step past, there's ways to deal with that. The family members can be able to see the other party for who. There are other physical characteristics. Other what do you call it? Personality traits. That should be explored a little bit further, and oftentimes are not. Sometimes they're not because families rush things. Sometimes they're not because their premarital conversations are very shallow, right? So premarital coaching or counseling helps to engage people at a deeper level, where they're able to talk about sensitive. Sometimes young people, alhamdulillah, they approach marriage in a halal way, in an appropriate way, but there's certain sensitive topics that they don't talk about because it would seem inappropriate to talk about, which is a good thing in a sense because they have some modesty and in terms of how they're going about affairs. But there's certain things that need to be talked about, right? So helping them engage in that space.
So what are those type of topics?
Yeah, what kind of topics are you covering?
Some of it has to do with intimacy. Some of it has to do with children. Has to do with finances. Has to do with people's emotional states, people's mental health, people's pre-existing, conditions, so to speak, strong personality traits and to fully explore that and engage that. So we have people take personality surveys. We analyze that. Some people, for example, a person will score very high in anxiety for so forth. Well, then you talk to the other person, say, well, what does this mean to you? Is this a point of concern? Is this talk to people about, other things will come up. Their perspective on children. Somebody will say, well, I really don't want to have children. And the other person, if they're in deep, they'll start negotiate, they'll start engaging that. They'll say, wait a second, you don't want to have children. You want to have children. Sorry, you want to have children. This person does not want to have children. That is a ghariza. That is an instinct inside of you that Allah planted in you.
Yeah.
And you want it. Right?
It's a natural thing.
It's your natural instinct. It's your fitrah. So why are you now, just kicking that to the curb? Engaging in those kind of conversations, because once people start talking and once they do get emotionally connected, they throw some of that stuff aside. But so you help them bring that back to the forefront and say, like, wait a second, is this really what you're looking for? And help them see very clearly for what who the other person is, and themselves too. Part of premarital coaching or counseling is helping people understand themselves, who they are. And there's a lot of benefit in that too.
So you're getting them to ask each other the right questions, essentially.
Yeah.
And also getting them to ask their own selves the right questions. So it's introspection as much as it is, inspection, right? So it's very good. I think
a halal inspection.
And a halal inspection. Yeah. Like you're asking the right questions, not what is your favorite color, but maybe someone has a deal breaker. Like, I don't want to live outside of California. There's no way I'm leaving the state.
Yeah.
Or there's no way I'm leaving the city. Whatever it is.
Or things like love language. The example I've used is, he's a business consultant and he travels every week. And she's like, my love language is quality time. If you're gone, this marriage will not last more than 2 years.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But it's something, if you're just in college, you would never consider that.
That's right.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest one, I always tell people, especially college age, I said, just think 5 years from now with a kid. Think of every question you could think of now with a kid. Because that is going to change. Because none of your questions have to do with kids. But 5 years from now, they will. And if you haven't thought about it right now, you're going to ruin yourself. Just right now, every time you're emotionally involved, just like, if I had a kid right now, what would happen? Probably not good. So that's usually the conclusion people get to.
Yeah.
So from my anecdotal evidence that I have personally, it seems to me always like the girls may have answers to these questions, or they have something figured out, and the guys either haven't really given it much thought, or they don't want to go to premarital counseling in the first place. Like, I know of multiple cases, more often than not, the guy's like, that's not for me. Yeah. That's not halal. I'm not crazy. I don't need to talk to a counselor. It's like, that's not what it's about. Yeah. Like, you have not matured, or you have not grown up in an environment to communicate with another person in that way. Yeah.
Guys lack emotional intelligence, relative to women, generally speaking, right? The level of that is, across the board is less. That's part of our biology, part of our, part of our makeup, our constitution. This younger generation is a little bit different. There's a little more openness, openness in a lot of things. We want it to be openness in the right things, right? But we'll take the openness as far as that goes to help them engage. But guys have pride. They think they can navigate the world by themselves without. But part of our tradition is, seeking counsel of those who are learned, seeking counsel of those who have experienced life, and availing that learned experiential knowledge. So when you step away from that, as if you're, discounting that reality, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and I think we don't have the societal structure here that we have back home. Like, families aren't they're not as involved. Like, you could be distant from your family, right? So just go get to know this person, or your family's getting involved for the wrong reasons. Whereas back home, you may have an extended family, multiple people you can talk to your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, your grandpa, your grandpa.
Correct.
Here, you may not have all your family here.
True.
So having, the service available, I mean, to me, I mean, Shaykh Mustafa told us this the last time he was here. He will not conduct a nikah unless he knows that this couple has done at least one premarital counseling sessions. I don't know if you have similar.
So we actually came up with some of that together, right?
Oh, okay.
Back in the day, we'd had conversations about this stuff. Shaykh Mustafa, Shaykh Faqih, myself, Shaykh Jamal, and others, we talked about these things, and we kind of came with an informal sort of pact that the major masajid back then, when we were in Orange County, we're not going, we're going to advise people to get premarital counseling before they get engaged in this space.
Beautiful.
And yes, and the problem is in the community, we have what we call living room imams who will just conduct nikah, in their living room, basically, and all kind of weird stuff does take place. But that's a whole nother subject and story. We'll leave that alone. But
wait, why not? Wait, let's get into it. I've never heard of a living room imam.
Yeah.
Sheikh Mulla Saab. You taught your kids Quran, he'll give you the nikah. No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what?
Well, so anyways, man.
Okay, that's fine. We don't.
Yeah. One day we come back to this subject. But I mean, you got there's some basic stuff, man. Some people like it's ifrat or tafrit. People are either very neglectful or go to one extreme or the other.
Okay.
One extreme is that people don't really talk to each other, and they get married, or they're doing it for the more, and that's not common now, but they do it for the wrong reasons. We've and again, this is another subject, but you have these things like I don't know why I got into this, man, but in the masjid area, you see people who will get married for naturalization purposes.
Oh yeah.
For secret second marriages and these different things.
Not so secret.
Yeah. So that's a whole set of problems by itself, right? And so if you do 1 session, 2 sessions of premarital counseling, you uncover that stuff. I've literally talked to people in the office, in the masjid office, say, "Oh, so how did you meet?" And they kind of just look at each other and scratch their head, and because therefore it's like for some, bogus purposes, right? Anyways, that's not our problem with the majority of our youths who are born and raised in America.
We're not.
But the other extreme is that they engage in intimate conversations. Even let's say they don't get physically involved, but they talk on the phone, man, for 3-4 hours at night, until 1-2 in the morning. They go out. Maybe they go out in public.
But you're in the car alone.
In the car. All of these very borderline sort of activities and engagements. And so just going. I don't know why we got into this point of extremes, but
that's. I mean, you're saying that's an extreme. People listening, I don't. Engaging, I don't think it's an extreme. That's like adi, it's normal.
Yeah.
I'm just talking to her on the phone. Like, there's no way zina is gonna happen. I'm just talking on the phone. We're in the car in a public place. There's no zina gonna happen here. And it's just always like, well, there's no zina gonna happen here. Like, what's the problem? Like zina being,
adultery,
premarital sex, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but like that's like one of the first steps.
And now you're also kidding yourself. Like, you have any privacy, they'll do something.
Of course.
Any privacy.
Of course.
Elevator between floors. Like,
exactly.
I've heard everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And you may not, and it may be very minimal in that particular context, but then but it will be more prompting to get in a context where you can do more.
Yeah.
Because now because that connection is there and it needs to be fulfilled. I mean, that's what happens. That's what happened with guys, and the connection needs to be fulfilled. And the only way for it to be fulfilled is for it to go all the way. And then when it goes all the way and that's done before marriage, then you're stuck on a whole nother level. And now you're trying, and then regret kicks in, and this, so you just, Islam is about protecting your honor and your dignity, maintaining the dignity of self. those borders, those boundaries, those hudud, as Allah calls them, are for our benefit.
Yeah.
People feel that they're restrictive. People who are Muslim get afraid of the word haram. Haram is not a bad word. Haram is a good word. If something is truly haram, not for people who misapply it and misappropriate. Haram is a good word. Some things are haram. Alcohol is haram for us to touch as Muslims. Forbidden for us to engage. Why? Because it messes you up, man. You don't have full use of your faculties, etc. It's a good word. It's for our benefit, right?
Yeah, boundaries are not a bad thing inherently.
No, absolutely not. No. And now, actually, that's what the society now, Western society it talks about, right? That's in the whole wake of the Me Too movement.
Yeah,
they talk about boundaries at work. Leave the door propped open. If the door is not open, at least you should have a window that somebody could see through. They're even talking about we should eliminate handshaking at work because just to eliminate
COVID took care of that one.
Well, yeah, COVID took care. So, right? I mean, they've come to that. Why have they come to that? Because people, when there are no boundaries, things go wrong. And so the optimal state of the human being is what Islam teaches us.
Yeah.
You can still reach those optimal state of social interactions by other means, but they're learning the lessons the hard way.
It only took them like 40 years and so many scandals.
Thousands of years, brother.
No. I mean, society wasn't always like this.
Yeah, true, right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until the sexual revolution.
You're right.
And
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's like, I don't know. It's ridiculous. And when I was reading this stuff, like, oh, this company's gonna eliminate like shaking hands. I was like, what the heck? Like, and they're championing this. Like back in the 2 years ago, if I didn't want to shake hands, they'd look at me like, are you disrespecting me? Like,
yeah.
Like, no.
I like how it was actually Shaykh that he put it this way, where when we Muslims, a lot of times they'll see a guy in college that they know was like doing XYZ haram stuff, and then they see him like figure his life out, and then he gets married. He goes, you know what? He got through it. I can do my haram stuff right now, and I'll figure it out. Like I can get there too. Like I don't necessarily need to get out of this relationship right now, but like when I get older, more mature, I can figure out how to do this. But then the way like Shaykh al-Adin actually put it, he said, it's like that's like going to the gutter, seeing someone drinking from it, and being like, I'll go drink from that too. And the guy's like, you shouldn't drink from that. Or someone comes by and says, I used to drink from that. Like, trust me, drink from the gutter. No bueno. He's like, you got away with it. I'll go drink from that gutter too.
Yeah.
Like why would you engage in something so filthy and nasty? It's only harming yourself to think like, I'll get through this. Like, everyone's telling you that's a sign of a lack of intelligence, like quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, these things are glorified, right? In the society we live in.
Yeah, the gutter has sparkles around it. Whatever else. Yeah.
Look at I work at UCLA, right?
Yeah.
Right across UCLA is all of their housing, the student housing, the dorms, the frat houses, this and that. Those places are wild, man. On Friday night, Saturday night, and you see girls how they go from the classroom where they go with their laptops and their backpacks and their what do you call it? Their notebooks and students to there. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put on girls only, but I mean it's just very blatant. It's very sad in terms of how society sexualizes them, and then they internalize that, and then you see them walking down in the nastiest mini skirts or whatever it is that they wear. And then people out on the street drinking, acting stupid, hollering. Some of the UCLA kids told me like there's one day of the year when everybody runs out in their underwear.
Yeah. I forgot what it's called.
It's called the undie run.
Oh, it is.
There it is. The undie run.
I think other schools have a naked run.
What?
That was what I know, actually.
Yeah, there's a naked run.
I was like, oh, that's the PG version.
Yeah, there's a nudie run.
So how does that work? How does that make sense?
It doesn't. People get in trouble.
I mean, I was reading a very interesting article by Dr. Leonard Sachs, who psychologist, mashallah, he writes a lot on parenting and whatnot. Okay. He was saying, it was after the latest and greatest top Billboard hit, WAP, which stands for very inappropriate words. And he's going through he's like, just read the lyrics, look what's top of the charts, #1 streaming, breaking records. And he was citing research of another psychologist, and they're saying like one of the many factors lending itself to this transgender movement, very interesting enough, women are seeing this. They're seeing themselves objectified, sexualized, preyed upon. We're glorified only if we're so open and brazen about how sexual we are. Say, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a woman. So they kind of internalize that subconsciously, and they just say like, "I'll go be a guy. My life will be a lot easier." But not, and you have to empathize with that actually a little bit. Like, man, that's so sad. Like, this is what you're fed constantly. Yeah. It's a very scary world.
It is. It is.
Put out
It is
like
scary.
that.
It is scary, and it's scary when we buy into it, and it's scary when we as Muslims who already have the haqq. Yeah, we have the truth. We have it. It's there. It's in our hands. But yet we want to throw it to the side and seek, like you said, from the gutter. You want to drink from the gutter. You want to drink from this glass of pure water, and that's what we have. We have it in our hands. It's just waiting for us to drink it. We have to make that move. We actually have to make those steps. You can't be force fed that. But it's sad when And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why we don't take that. I mean, part of it has to do with societal pressures. Part of it has to do with poor upbringing. Parents who don't, who teach their beauty of Islam, teach their kids the beauty of Islam, but rather teach them a scare tactic Islam.
Well, that's what they grew up on.
Yeah.
That's.
But so sad.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah, so sad.
It's haram, what's not haram. Don't do this, don't do that.
If you think about it, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. Allah says, when He says who taught the Quran, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, loving, giving, compassionate. It's like, and we flip that around and say, all right, the adab is going to teach you instead, the punishment. Let me teach you that way.
Yeah.
And that's
antithetical to the Quran's message. Yeah.
It's completely contradictory to today's message of love, acceptance, everything's all good. You don't. As long as there's consent, as long as there's no harm, then it's morally okay. And as a young impressionable person, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You listen to that. You don't. No one is sitting there with you. They're like, you're not taking it to its logical conclusion. When now they're talking about like, oh well, if my animal consents, can I be intimate with my animal? Like, there's no harm in that. That's actually happening.
You heard about this thing coming out on Netflix.
Which one? Cuties?
I don't know what the heck it's called.
Oh, that's been out.
No, maybe it's not that one. Is it?
They're talking about pedophilia.
Yeah, that's the one. Cuties.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
Yeah,
11-year-olds being sexualized and doing very X-rated.
Yeah, but that's a logical conclusion that you just mentioned. I mean, if everything is open, then what does that mean? And
the funny thing is with that director, just to touch a little bit on Cuties, she was like in Senegal, I guess, and she was seeing these girls attending these. Like, what are they called? When little girls are up on display, people are up on display and they get rated.
Like beauty pageants?
Like beauty pageants, right? And these young girls are doing these, whatever they're called. Yeah, haram pageants. Yeah. They're doing these dances and she's like, oh, these young girls are being sexualized. Like, I should bring awareness to this. That was her original intention. Allah Alam, that's what the article said. So she went on to make this video, or to make this movie. And it won an award and then Netflix picked it up. So that was the trajectory. But then the actual movie is just sexualizing the kids 24/7.
Oh.
Even at the end, the girl who's a Muslim, the main character is a Muslim, right? She's actually has a Muslim name, and she comes from a Muslim family playing that character in the movie. She gets fed up that she realizes that she sexualized herself, and she gives up the dancing and runs away crying. And that was her like turning away from it. But like the whole movie,
that's
you're
like
filming,
They said you don't get it, like. They were trying to bring a message of sexualization, but the equivalent of that, because they actually sexualized 11-year-old girls. First of all, they had a psychologist on set to help them deal with the very weird.
They had that?
Yeah, because they had to counsel them and be like, "You're about to do XYZ thing."
Oh my God.
That is
very
weird.
Like pornography moves on camera. So we just need to help you like cope with this. And they say, "Okay, we're bringing awareness." That'd be the equivalent of me doing an awareness of domestic abuse, but actually have the guy beat her up on stage. And be like, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you beat her up on stage!" Like, I'm bringing awareness.
Yeah.
Like instead of
don't do this.
Someone actually got hurt. Those girls actually got sexualized. Whether or not we're bringing awareness does not change the fact you affected at least 5 girls. My friend.
What just happened?
It was that. Oh, there
we go.
It was just that.
Was that right? Yeah, that's back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man, it's just weird. People don't think things through. Unfortunately,
that's them being an artist, they're not very deep thinkers. Like, oh, I'm gonna make a movie about this, and then it just whoever else got involved, and we need this and that, and then before you know, we got this this disgusting film, which not only sexualizes children, but at the same time pits the girl finding her freedom against the Islamic culture being a traditional culture and backwards, and that's how. And it's like, the girl's stuck between a rock and a hard place, essentially. The rock being Islam, right? So all around, it's.
But even then, perhaps a misappropriated sense of what Islam is, right?
100%.
Yeah. So
some abusive
100%.
version that only Hollywood knows.
Yeah.
And
although they try to paint that as real Islam, but that's
the pedophilia thing is real. There's actually like an organization. I forget what they're called.
trying to normalize it, like
NAMBLA or something, North American Men for Young Boys, something like that. Something. It's like an actual organization, and they didn't. It wasn't only until like the late 2000s where they got banned. Like they were active for a while, and then they got officially banned, and now they're trying to make a comeback because of stuff like Cuties, apps like TikTok, which is just young
bunch of kids,
just a bunch of kids, boys and girls, preteen children who are doing these sexual dances 24/7. Munir, actually, you also have something to add about your friend.
I'll give you. So a coworker of mine, his fiance works for a startup that does like viral videos. So it helps people market their videos to get a lot of views.
okay.
And some of their clients are big vloggers on YouTube. So these people have millions of views every time. They're family vlogs, by the way. So
By millions, like 50 million viewers on one video.
So it's a mom who's filming with her husband who's helping. And usually the husband quits their job to help the mom, by the way. This is very common. And then there are 2, 3, whatever kids. They're top viewed, and they know this because they work with this viral company. The top viewed videos are my kids in the pool, my kids bath time, my kids without their shirt on, essentially. And guess what the demographics are? What's the top demographic? 45 plus.
Men.
I wonder why. And the thing is, the worst part is they know that because they're obviously getting the data, but they keep putting out that kind of content because they know it's going to make us 6K.
They're making millions.
Sorry,
Images
6 figures.
are so powerful, man.
Yeah.
Images are so powerful, and
why we can't make images of God and the Prophet. I mean, you realize it.
Yeah,
the genius of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jesus, think of how that has really messed up the world. When white, when I think of Jesus, I think white.
Yes.
If I think God is white,
yes.
what are you going to think of the world?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Taking that a tangent into imagery in general, and how that could be a powerful a motivator for harm. Are you seeing a lot of young people dealing with pornography coming
good
into
transition, bro? How'd you pull that? That was slick.
I was just
He's been waiting.
yeah. I fed him a no. I was like, talk about this.
Yeah. Pornography is a problem, man. It's a problem. Again, it's the images. And the power of them.
Yeah.
And our Prophet ﷺ, he was the most genius person to walk the face of this earth. Full, beautiful balance in every aspect of what he taught and how he himself lived. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, oh young people, if you're able to get married, right?
Yeah.
Whoever amongst you has the physical, financial, emotional maturity to get married.
Okay.
And because marriage is that ultimate protection, we've lost that sort of tradition. Now we have, we live in a society where, or at least in Muslim American society, you go to school, you get your bachelor's, then you get your master's, and maybe if you're a doctor, you finish your whatever school, and then you look into. In the meantime, what's happening? In the meantime, your body has your physical body as well as your emotional self has needs. You have the need for companionship, the need for physical desires to be fulfilled, sexual desires, and so forth. And when there's, number one, there's no outlet for it. Number two, I come from, my parents are from India, and I've been there multiple times. I lived years in Egypt studying there, and I've seen how those societies function. in those societies, guys are close. They walk down the street arm in arm, and I'm not talking about any homosexual sort of behaviors.
I know what you mean.
There's a beautiful love and brotherhood that exists between them, and they display
hold hands,
that.
They hold hands, they hold pinkies.
Yeah, exactly.
It's weird.
So there is a companionship that is deeper. It's more genuine. It's more, and so that helps them with that aspect of that. We've lost a lot of that in Western society. You become more isolationist. People now, worlds are within their own selves, within their own phones. They think they're talking to people. They think they have friends, but there's really no depth to any of that, right? So anyways, I say all of that to say that what's crept up in the midst of all of that is this evil headed thing, pornography, that has just become so normalized and so accessible, and has just swept young people's minds. And for most people, it's not, for the vast majority of society, it's not something that's frowned upon. Talking about outside of Muslims, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't claim to have a full understanding of how it's seen within general society.
It's totally fine. It's a positive. Actually, nowadays you're seeing a lot of quote unquote porn actresses making their way into the mainstream, like music videos. Whatever the pop culture purveyor is.
It's not taboo anymore.
It's not taboo
anymore.
Yeah, like it's okay to know who they are, to talk about them, fawn over them publicly.
It's so hard for me to digest that, man. It's so
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. How is there any dignity? And then those are superstars that people. It doesn't make.
They're superstars. They're their own superstars.
I can't fathom any of that stuff.
Well, we glorify sex work now. That's you can't say they're.
Oh yeah, we're pro sex workers.
What?
Yeah.
And we should be pro helping them get out of that. Like that's what we should be pro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not to abandon them, but maybe we should get you a new line of profession. I don't know.
Wow. So
do you just advise someone who has a pornographic addiction, or they're watching porn on the regularly? Like, is there a solution to just get married? Will that just help? No. Okay.
Not straight like that. Not straight like that. But before we get into that, pornography is a massive problem amongst young Muslim males. A massive problem.
What would you estimate a percentage?
What if they read Quran?
I don't know.
What if they go to the masjid? What if they pray 5 times a day?
It's theirs within all of those segments, man. And huffaz and people who have memorized the Quran. I don't know about imams per se, but I can't imagine that's not. But we have a problem in the Muslim community, and I'm going to kind of put this out there, and this is not to cast doubt or suspicion on certain people who may fall within this demographic, but this is something that I've seen. Muslim men who are in da'wah, who are engaged in Islamic work on various levels, and so on and so forth, but are now in their, let's say in their early 30s, who have never been married.
Okay.
Oftentimes, these are number of cases that we've come across. Unfortunately, there's some sort of sexual perversion that exists there, whether that is porn, somebody who's engaged in they're a porn addict, or they're engaged with women in an indecent way, right, outside of marriage, engaged in zina and so forth.
Oh, escort, like full on escorting, and like that's like physical stuff, not just, we're not talking images here anymore.
Yeah. I'm talking about who just having illicit or inappropriate relationships with women, because again, it's a need, and there's no reason why people like that can't be married. There's no reason, unless maybe somebody who has some sort of severe mental illness or anything other than that, like that, and they don't want to get married, and they want to protect somebody else from being there. There's maybe something there, but generally speaking, that's again, not to cast light or cast certain people in a shadow of suspicion or anything that, but it's just a reality. It's there. We find young people who are in their in their 30s and stuff like that, who haven't been married, and marriage is a big thing in Islam. Marriage is not a small thing, right? We have a tradition in Islam of al-ulama al-uzzab, those that scholars that were bachelors and they lived their whole life as bachelors.
Yeah.
But these were righteous people.
Imam Nawawi, like
And there was no pornography back then.
No.
That you just couldn't go and find somebody or something.
But those days are gone. There may be those days are gone, and so the all of the push is so heavy from so many different things. This is when I was a kid.
Okay.
The only access we had to pornographic material was in a dirty liquor store, right? Mm-hmm. It's a liquor store. It's like the stores you go into, like you walk in, oh shit, I'm not gonna go in here.
You go in out of necessity for like you're stuck in the middle of a freeway and you need like gas that. And you need water, man. And you walk in and it just happens to.
And you walk in there like, oh man, but in a dirty liquor store where there's a magazine rack, or when I first went to college, and then now you're supposedly old enough and they have whatever Playboy magazine and all that kind of stuff back in the day. I don't know if those things still exist, but that was the only access. Literally, you cannot find it other than that, or it's in the XXX rated section in the movie store. Back in the day, we used to actually have to walk into a movie store and rent a movie.
It still exists. Adult stores, you see them on the street sometimes.
You have to walk into the back of the adult store, and everyone
you feel dirty and shit. To even like have to step into that, right? But now it's in your pocket, man. It's in your pocket. And you pull it out and do whatever the heck you want. No weird puns intended with all of that, but it's all it's everybody has access to it, and it's just and it's sad, and young people fall for it because it's hard to have the there is a base desire, right, that's at play. Mm-hmm. And if you let that get a hold of you, and if you let your guard down, and your curiosity lets you jump that line, game over.
So what's your advice to them? I think people get like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah,
I'm in it deep.
Yeah.
Well, what do you tell the young guys who come up to you, Shaykh?
Yeah.
Like, where do they even start?
Yeah. Yeah, man. You asked a question before, Amr, about can you just jump from that into marriage and stuff like that? And I think we come to that, but
I was asking. I mean, I know the answer. I just wanted you. Not that I know the answer. I just know that
you probably shouldn't.
You probably shouldn't, because that's not gonna fix. I mean, from everything I've been reading, I've been trying to do a lot of reading on this. There's actually not that many actual studies that have been done. It's mainly scientists going into online forums and surveying people and getting their stories, and the idea that even people that have a girlfriend, they find that they have a pornography addiction, and then they can use porn, but when it comes to their girlfriend, they're not excited. They can't perform in their duties. So like I wanted to make a point. You can't just
erectile dysfunction.
You're
gonna get erectile dysfunction.
With that, right, and this is a very common scenario that comes up. Young people come for premarital coaching. Shaykh, I want to talk to you on the side. They tell you on the side that this is something I don't know how to deal with this. I'm talking to this girl for marriage, but at the same time I have a porn addiction. What do I do, right?
Yeah,
and it's unfortunately it's a frequent conversation. They're trying to go in the right direction, but they're caught up.
Yeah.
So some, I think the people that Purify Your Gaze, they say that you should have a gap of 6 to 12 months of that activity of watching porn, of masturbating and all those things.
To kind of reboot your body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as a general rule, that's good, but then there's a case to case. A person needs to be aware of their special circumstances, their particular circumstances. Because if somebody been addicted to porn for 20 years, some people are. Well, what does that mean? And then, or 10 years or 15 years. And I meet a lot of young guys now. Yeah, I've been addicted since I'm 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Well, now they're in their 20s, 10, 15 years down the line. It's a heavy reality within, a constitution that makes. So number one, they need to get treatment. You need to get treatment. That treatment either looks like therapy and ideally into a specific porn addict treatment course of sorts,
like purify your gaze.
Purify your gaze we have in the Muslim community.
Yeah.
And that combined with some therapy, because
At Khalil Center, another plug.
I mean, so one is learning the specific tools how to deal with porn addiction. The second is learning about yourself on a deeper level, right? Because there is something naqis, there is something that is missing within the self, and that reality of engaging in porn filled that gap.
So it's not just because the young guy wants some release. You're saying there's a lot of times. Oftentimes there's a deeper issue.
Oftentimes there's something deeper going on,
and that's what they.
Yeah. No, man.
Yeah, this is one of the heavier topics that we've been trying to discuss recently. I mean, just based on what I was reading, if the statistics apply to the Muslim community as well, it's like 90% of guys between the ages of like 20 and 35 are engaged in this.
Is that the general numbers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of variation, right? Yeah. Like they did one in Australia, they did one here, and it's just like the majority of guys.
Man, I need to listen to your guys' stuff more. You feeding me a lot of
we're
stats, bro.
There's a plug for prophetic mentality from the Shaykh.
Yeah. Allahu Akbar. I mean, we'll go over the books. Like I said, we want to expand on this series, because it is one of the, I think, topics that does not get highlighted much. I don't think I've ever seen a Muslim conference put out their talk list, and this is like not even porn addiction, just say addiction, like addressing addiction in the community. I don't think I've ever seen it. Everything now, it's you're either doing the Sufi spiritual stuff or the political activism stuff, right? And you bounce between the two, and well, okay,
we got to get a Shaykh Omar Hussein. I can't remember which one. Omar Hussein, thank you. He's getting his PhD, like, essentially in this topic.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll get him on one day and talk, like, get deep. He's a counselor as well.
Yeah, that's the...
Yeah, this thing, I mean, and I'll kind of add to it. You said, so we create this mentality, get addicted to these issues, has a long, lingering effect. And what's interesting, I was reading about, like, adultery later on in life. And they're saying, and there are a lot of men, they get involved, they're good, stable marriages, and they'll go and have an affair. And they're like, what's the mentality behind such an affair? And you kind of touched on it too, how men have a different emotional output. And you said pride specifically, and actually this is a good one, because men, what they'll do is, and they're like late 30s, early 40s, they'll go have an affair. Why? To prove to themselves, I still got it. I still got it, baby. Like I can still court a woman or get a woman if I wanted to. And I think, and maybe that honestly, I feel like that's also part of the lingering, like, some messed up mentality stuff from younger on. Like I need a change, a stale marriage, as they put it, right? I've been with one woman for 20 years. Like I need to spice it up a bit. Why? Because I was used to spicing it up every single day with a new person online. Like now I need to prove to myself, one, with pride, and then two, just like, relive this pornography in real life kind of thing. The hit. Yeah. And so it's
I mean, the Quranic guidance is so powerful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا.
Yeah.
Don't come close to it. And, somebody really takes that to heart. Anytime you see yourself, we pull back. But as soon as you open those doors that are meant to remain locked,
That's my neighbors playing their mariachi music.
It's okay. It's a low hum in the back.
It's fine. We'll take care of it. So you were saying, man.
As soon as you open those doors, it's a problem. And I've seen it in all the scenarios you painted. But I've also seen it, and this is interesting, young men who grew up clean, pure, but now they got married, and something was missing in the marriage. They'd never strongly emotionally attached, and that emotional companionship is still a need. They found somebody else. They grew up. Like I said, you know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is سَبْعَةٌ يُظِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ, that 7 that will be under the shade of Allah on the day when there's no shade except His shade. One of them is شَابٌ نَشَأَ فِي طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ, a young person who grew up in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning they kept themselves pure, they kept themselves chaste, they lived a good Muslim life, but they get into marriage and still they can go there, which means what? It means that anybody's susceptible. Mm-hmm. You're susceptible at any time, right? So to keep our guard up, to keep our, that's key, man.
So not just because you got married doesn't mean you're safe. It's a constant battle, especially if you're a man.
The only outlet you could argue you have an outlet now, but it doesn't mean if that outlet goes away for whatever reason because
your wife had a baby.
You need to make that halal outlet right and optimal, right? You need to love your wife. You need to engage. You need to make your marriage as beautiful as possible, right? You need to make it as full as possible. And if something is missing, then you need to fill in that something with, by getting some an intervention, getting some help, getting some counseling, whatever it may be. But because you neglect that reality, there's other converse effects. And especially if you're a person, has weak impulse control and stuff like that, it's easy to get caught up in other stuff. And there's plenty of stuff to get caught up in. So
yes, when you do have weak impulse control and you live in a society that gratifies quick satisfaction, what's it like? You just want the hit of dopamine. Yeah. Pull up your phone, text this, go here, do that, and it's going to be available.
It's sad, man. I met men who are older, and I've had women complain about their husbands, I found my husband on a dating app presenting himself as such and such because, like you said, he's still trying to prove I got it or this and that. But the reality is not fulfilled in the marriage for whatever. But instead of dealing with like a man, getting the help you need, right, and figuring things out and admitting that things aren't working out, you run off and do some stupid stuff, man. So, that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah, agreed. We segued real quick.
I took you there.
No, it's all.
Unfortunately, that's the stuff we see, man, and
and it's good to talk about these because majority of our listeners are in their 20s, right? So if you're not fixing yourself now, if you're not dealing with your issues now, and that you have issues and what issues you have, a lot of us are smart enough to understand that. This is the logical progression of things. This is where you can be down the road. You don't want to get married to cure your pornography addiction and then in 20 years commit an act of zina, right? To prove to yourself that you still got it. Because we know that with the way things are progressing, with the way everything is being pornified, right? The accessibility to this material is only going to increase. Also, the accessibility to these, I'm assuming, right? To these porn actresses and escorts and whatever is also going to increase. We're getting a lot more. There's a lot more movement and push to glorify sex work and put that under the umbrella of whatever other ism, and that's going to be pushed as why are you outlawing my body, right? I have a right to sell my body. Now, if every woman is out there, on Instagram, right, or whatever, and that you can just pay for play, then what's going to stop you if you haven't worked on yourself now, right? So it's important to share even the older stories, even if we're talking to young men, essentially.
Yeah, that's true. So people who are married don't think this conversation is not for them. Whether there are takeaways for yourself, and then if you have younger siblings, if you have people just younger mentees, this is important stuff you have to know and be ready to engage people with because it's only going to get more common. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. Mm-hmm. Inshallah, it gets better, but not now. Today.
No.
And which brings it all back to, you said we have the truth already. You gotta use it. We have Islam already, and the story we know is one of our old roommates. He lived with a woman from England who's his landlord. She's in her 90s, and he told us she took the shahada. They had talked to her over dinners and lunches or whatever. She took her shahada and then died a week later or something crazy.
No, she died on her deathbed.
Died on her deathbed?
That's what usually happens.
Oh, she took her shahada and then died right there?
Yeah, it was within hours. It was not a week later.
Oh, well, there you go. But then, so the moral story isn't mashallah, tabarakallah, she did that. But you know what young people will do? You'll hear that story and say, man, she got to do whatever she wanted her whole life. take that shahada.
That's stupidity, man.
Oh,
You're gonna risk it. You're gonna risk it.
No, but we don't say that explicitly, but we do it with our actions.
Yeah.
We live our whole lives and say, I'll get good later. I'll pray those 5 prayers after.
Yeah.
My parents die. That trauma will get me going. I'll get back to God then.
Yeah.
But that person had a living hell, 90 whatever years, not knowing God, not practicing what He wants for the betterment of her own life, and then accept it on her deathbed. But you could have it your entire life and Jannah. Why not get both? But we throw that first part away in hopes of coming back to it later for whatever reason.
Yeah, man. Before I came into Islam, I was wild, and I experienced. Before my Islam came full circle, right?
Got it.
Where you started practicing because you want to practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and where it just developed within me in a way that was meaningful. I was wild, man, and I seen all that stuff, been through all that stuff, and if I could, we don't say this as Muslims, but I'm saying this for the benefit of young people. If I could go back and change all of that, and if I could go back to when I was a kid, and be a nerd, read the Quran, focus on like the reality that one day I'm going to stand before Allah and I'm going to be held accountable. I'm accountable for everything that I did since I hit puberty. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of stupid stuff after puberty.
We forget that.
Right? Yeah. When we're 14, 15, 16 years old, right? If I could erase from my eyes and from my memory banks the things that I've seen, if I could eliminate, engaging with people that did nothing but drug me down to the, to hell, to garbage, to the gutter. If I could do all of that stuff, I wouldn't. If you could give me anything in this world, I'd take that. Right?
Like you would take it away. You mean?
I would take it away.
Okay.
Because I know now how valuable my deen is. I know now how valuable this beautiful way of life is, and I know how worthless the whole high school scene is, the whole college scene is,
the party scene, everything.
All of that stuff, bro. So if I could, I would go back in a second. And clean it all up. But alhamdulillah, I live with what I live with. But I say that for the purpose of saying, like, there ain't no good in none of that stuff, man. And to think that there is,
you don't know Islam well enough. Probably is like the true answer.
And the mark of male maturity, trying to think about your future self. Like you're in college, you're acting like a child. Or you want something, you're gonna get it now. You're not thinking,
what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan?
What's your 10-year plan? We have 5 10-year career goals, but we don't have. No one ever asks you, what's your 5-year spiritual goal? No one asks you that. That's actually a good question if you're trying to get married to somebody.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's completely lacking. It's like, what's your 5-year career goal? Well, I'm going to party now, get a job, and I'm going to make a lot of money. It's like, oh yeah, sounds great, sounds solid.
I had this kid, man. He came to me and he says, when I say kid, probably in the early 20s, he says, Shaykh, I don't think smoking marijuana is haram. So what do you mean?
Start.
Right, this is a kind of notion that's running around.
There we go.
I don't think smoking weed is haram. Okay, well, why? He says, because it doesn't have the effect on me, this and that. I said, well, you've been smoking for a long time, haven't you? Your senses are dulled. And anyways, I reasoned with him. I did these intellectual exercise with him to the point like, okay, Shaykh, you're right. Smoking weed is haram. Fast forward 6 months.
Okay.
Shaykh, I'm addicted to marijuana. Even after he admitted intellectually, right? But the point is he engaged, and then it took hold of him.
Yeah,
and that's the problem with all of these behaviors and all this stuff that we're talking about, right? Porn, being getting caught up with substances of various types and so on. They take hold of you. You don't take hold of them. You can't. Once they get into your heart, once they get into your under your skin, you lost control. And so, you know, it's interesting. Even if you can intellectually wrap your head around it, and say, well, like, no, this is not right. I shouldn't be having sex. I shouldn't be watching porn. But once it's in you, it takes hold. Yeah. And so that's the danger.
What are the prophetic remedies for such things? I know there are hadith, at least one that comes to mind. I think it was the same hadith, end of the hadith you were quoting. So a man, he's addicted and he's trying to wean himself off at least. Like, what's something he can do spiritually that can help him in that regard?
Yeah, the end of that hadith says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ فَإِنَّ لَهُ وِجَاء. And the one who is not able to get married, then they should fast, because that's a shield for you, right? So I call that fast the bachelor fast, you know, Mondays and Thursdays. It's a bachelor fast because it helps put the nafs down. So and that is an absolute you know, explicit advice from the Prophet ﷺ as in regards to that particular issue of keeping your nafs in check. And so if you don't engage in that, you've lost a clear path by which to gain aid, right? So most people, you ask them, with porn addicts, young Muslims, well, what are you doing to, you know this is not good. Do you fast? 90% of them are going to say no. You got to. That's step one, right? You got to control what is porn addiction except not having control of what you do and what you let your eyes see. So taking control of yourself. Fasting is that, right? Fasting is helping you a problem in COVID is that everybody's doing everything in bed. You're working in bed. You're entertaining yourself in bed, meaning watching your media and stuff like that, and you're sleeping in bed. The bed is to sleep.
So you become Wall-E people, like except everyone's at home. You know, that's literally what it is.
You wake up in the morning and then you don't change and you sit in your bed. And anyways, why do I say that as relates to this? Because
like your
masturbation takes place in the morning. It takes place at night.
Yeah.
And it takes place when you're in a place of comfort, and it takes place, and a young man will have erections are part of life. They happen. It's embarrassing what happens at school. You're sitting at your desk and stuff like that, but that's not as common as when you're in your bed. And when you're in your bed, and then you have the ability to act on that, versus when you're in the classroom, you're sitting, you're not going to do nothing with that. Right. So when so don't be laying around in bed all day, and not in the night, not in the morning, nor at night. But that's everybody's standards now. The night comes, everybody retreats to their bedroom, and each member in their own family does their own you got stay in the common space, stay in the public space in the house, and stay in your living room. The other thing is watch what you eat. Sugar, red meat, inflames the nafs. Watch what you listen to.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Music is crazy, man. It'll throw your nafs on fire, bro. Every other song is talking about baby, I love you. Oh. Baby, I miss you. Baby, I need you again. Baby, come back to me. Oh, baby, I got you. And it's a cycle. And so, the theme of love and need and everything, and then what happens with porn, right? A lot of it is tied. A lot of people, what they're acting their fantasies out as it relates to somebody that they see in a certain light, and the music that they listen to about baby this and baby that is related to somebody, that an image that they have in their mind of who this person is, right? And all of this. So you listen to that, you're bringing that picture alive. We talked about bringing that notions alive within yourself, right? Yeah. So what you watch, obviously. So all of these things, need to be. It's about keeping the nafs in check. It's about keeping the nafs.
You hit it all, so keeping the nafs in check by watching what you consume through your senses. Right? Your mouth, your eyes, your ears. You can't be listening to the latest, the top 100 chart right now and then think, oh yeah, you know, I'm definitely gonna quit this pornography addiction.
Yeah.
Like
It's part of the package.
Yeah, there's no way, right? You do not be watching, you know, binging on Netflix or whatever other,
Definitely not Netflix, man.
you know, whatever other movies in general, right? Like even I know you were saying like Avengers, right? Like that's one of few that you could probably watch, but majority of movies nowadays, it's, you know, either you're watching like some romantic love story that'll hype you up, or it's just like a, you know, outward, like, you know, some sex act that's happening, you know, Game of Thrones or whatever. Like, don't be watching Game of Thrones and you know, I'm gonna quit this pornography addiction. Like, no, you're not. Like, it's all,
I mean, you know, even like the trailers for movies, right? They always have a kiss scene in there. You notice that? There was like this like flash of the guy and the girl getting together. You know why, right?
That's right.
They do A/B testing. They've shown both trailers to test groups, one without the kiss scene, one with the kiss scene. Then they ask them afterwards, which trailer looked better? And guess which one always ranks better? The one with the kiss scene. And
even though it's like for a frame,
it's literally a split second.
You don't
that one tests
it.
better.
Wow.
It's subconscious even. Like, even if you didn't know what you really saw, you will say that one's better.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to really check yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, and so that was the prophetic. And so I'm not to separate the prophet in the Quran, but from the Quran's perspective, and I don't want to misquote the Quran, but no doubt prayer prevents from like all types of bad. Good. Prayer is going to prevent you from these type of things. So I heard one imam put it. He said, "Look, you feel yourself, that urge comes up. He said, go pray 2 rak'ah. He said, I'm about to pray 2 rak'ah. I'm about to go do like this most haram thing. Just go pray 2 rak'ah. Because the thing, if you do that, you first of all have to get yourself up and change your mind altogether. Go make wudu and go pray 2 rak'ah. After that, you'd be like, am I really going to go do what I was just about to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Prayer prevents you from these type of things. And you said it happens in the morning and night. So even the guy who prays 5 times a day, he knows it can only happen at those times. Why? So that for the guys who don't pray in the middle, I can't do it between Fajr and Dhuhr, especially if I'm at school, because I got to make ghusl in between, or I can't pray. Can't do it between Dhuhr and Asr. Not enough time to get back home and shower. Asr and Maghrib, same difference. Maghrib and Isha, same thing. That's what happens at those times, even for the religious folk.
And night more so.
Yeah.
And that's really good advice, Akhi. That's really good advice. You know, when it happens at night, which is the time when you're most susceptible, get up and pray. That's beautiful advice. Yeah.
To give a secular point, which is to not, you know, say that it's better or worse.
The podcast.
No, it's a physical thing, right? This is something I've seen on forums. I've been part of the research I've been doing. People say take a cold shower, jump in the shower and turn on the water as cold as possible. Your body will immediately tense up and you'll forget whatever was on your mind. And that goes for any kind of addiction, pornography, nicotine, whatever. You know, you just shock your body in such a way that if you do it enough times, you train your body to actually not want that desire.
Pavlov dog opposite.
Yeah. Like every time the desire comes up, I know I'm about to get hit with cold water. So probably not a good idea. So, you know,
there might be some long-term consequences to that. I don't know, bro.
Well, we did say the pornography is different in intimacy with a woman, right? So that's, you know,
Shaykh, if I can ask you, this is gonna be a controversial one, but we're allowed to be real on this podcast, right? So
I don't want to get canceled, but
you can cut this out if it's too.
No,
we got a Shaykh here to double check.
Let's go.
I gave this advice once to a youth group, and because I was talking about this issue of pornography, I said, look, you guys, let me be real with you. You're doing it for the feeling that comes along with pornography. Like if I said watch pornography and don't do anything, tie your hands behind your back and just watch it. Like that's not actually why you're watching pornography. You're doing it with it. You're masturbating with it. That's actually. So look, next time you won't have this, just go masturbate by itself. You know what someone told me? Is that even possible?
Really?
Because make that distinction, that trade off. So they really realize is actually what I'm trying to do is this, but I can't do it without this.
SubhanAllah.
So they even have that mental connection themselves already. I said, look, just masturbate without pornography. See how far that gets you, and realize what you want to know where you're addicted or where you're stuck. You know, at least that's one step away, I would say. Not that to justify it, but
can I add one thing on that before Shaykh answer? That's there's a book I'm reading. It's called Your Brain on Pornography, and one of the doctor, he says one of the ways to test if you have a problem with pornography or not, he said try to do that same thing, and if you're not able to, then you have erectile dysfunction. Like that's, you know, people that want to should I get married? Is that going to fix the issue? The guy goes into it. He's like, this is the steps you take. Do this. If you could do 1 and 2, you have like a health problem. If you can only do 3, okay, then you're fine. If you can't do this, then you have ED.
See, the problem is, man, you're talking to an old head, man. See, I mean, masturbation existed when I grew up, and pornography did not, or at least not to the same extent. So, so I can't even relate to these conversations.
And that's like the Shaykh Yusuf Qaradawi fatwa, right?
Yeah.
There's like the fatwa of Shaykh Yusuf Qaradawi, right? I think, and he has I think it's in his book. I don't want to misquote him, but it's like the halal and haram in Islam. And I think he had a piece in there about like the young man who like lives by himself in a Western country and he's tempted by zina. Then okay, you're allowed this as a release to not get into zina, I think. But that's not like people use that as like, oh, okay, it's halal for me. Like, it's not the same thing. You know?
I mean, but the point you made is that nobody does that now without the agent of pornography to.
You know what? Probably what it is. They were exposed to pornography before they even knew what masturbation was. If you really look at the ages people are exposed, 9 to 12 years old,
perhaps
didn't even know what their body parts did. Saw these crazy images for a prepubescent mind. Then they hit puberty. Then they realized what they could do with it, and then that's probably where they're gonna. I don't know.
No, that's what they're saying. They're like, we don't have the research on this. Like there just has not been enough. Like they try to get like in one thing they try to get 30 guys to quit, and they're like, okay, like with 10 we were able to successfully get them to quit, and they're on the road to recovery. Like their lives with their spouses or significant other is going back to normal. The other 10 are taking a little bit longer to get there, but they're reporting positive feedback, and the other 10 just quit. They're like, we can't do it. They can't even get enough. They can't even get a big enough sample size.
That was what it was.
To do a study. Yeah. Because they're like, the guy the men physically, they're not able to quit. So you can't like get the.
There's an article making the rounds. They wanted to do a study.
Yeah.
They were trying to survey men who do not watch pornography, and they quit the study because they couldn't find any men who don't watch pornography.
You need like a population of 1,000 to get like something statistically significant, and you can't get it. You can't get it. Wow. So it's.
So to make, I guess, summarize all this, Muslims aren't immune from this. It's happening everywhere. It doesn't matter who or what or how religious you are. You've been saying, and there are stories after story, Hafad and Mufti Saab and whatever. It doesn't matter who you are. This issue is a human issue, it turns out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a reaction to the way media is being portrayed and pushed out from the West across. And so now even in the middle, I remember I was in an internet cafe. I swear to God, I like look back and some guy's like watching, what? It's like, man,
internet cafe?
Yeah.
Overseas?
I guess the only computer he had. I don't know what it is, man.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Yeah, I remember in our library at Cal Poly, like people like randos would come in and like look
on the like library computers
and like look stuff up, and then they'd have to call the police and like they have to get escorted out.
You know what's sad? You see these things sometimes that they say the top countries where pornography is looked up, and then Muslim
Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, whatever else after that.
They're all the Muslim countries. They're the biggest.
Do you believe that though?
I've heard it's because it's the way they search it. So if you're doing the research by who searches the word porn, it's probably the Middle Eastern countries who only know that one word, as opposed to over here they're searching all. They just go straight to the website.
Poor guys, Masakin, that's the only way they know how to access it.
And over here they go straight to the website. They don't need to search things, right? Or they know exactly what they're looking for, kind of thing, as opposed to there. That's one counter argument I've heard, but
who knows?
It's probably the same numbers if you really balance it out.
I would like to believe that it's a conspiracy against the Muslims to make us look bad. But I mean, if you look at like Bollywood, right, and the kind of media that's coming out of Bollywood, it's becoming super hypersexualized, right? Recently, like you could watch like a family Bollywood movie, but there's just disgusting imagery there. And if that's what's mainstream, then the subculture is probably 10 times as worse. So I personally, I wouldn't be. I wish it wasn't the truth, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
I don't know. I mean, and I would be. I'm curious how much your knowledge is of Bollywood, but if what I know of, this is probably a useless conversation, but Bollywood is behind Hollywood in terms of its moral degradation. I hope. at least it was as it was 30 years ago. It was, and I'm hoping that it didn't speed up to that level of. So yeah, it definitely is degraded in a very bad way.
Yeah,
but I think, but the West is still the leader.
No, I agree.
The West is still the leader.
You're not going to get full
pushing
nudity.
out garbage and pushing out,
You're not going to get
because
full
if you've
nudity, no.
sold women to their absolute, lowest, and if you've legalized prostitution, and if you've glamorized sex work, if you've, all of this, it's a different world. I went to, and this is weird, I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I went to Bombay 20 years ago.
Okay.
My cousin, he took me to a red light district, they call it.
Mashallah.
No, just to show me. No, astaghfirullah, like just to drive through and just
in Bombay. Okay.
It was the ugliest sight I ever seen. But it was ugly for like
what was going on?
Yeah, and which was for me is like, oh, that's, how could you even approach that? It wasn't made, I don't know, look nice in any kind. It was these girls standing in their clothes outside each of their shops, a whorehouse, next to it an STD clinic. Whorehouse, STD clinic. Whorehouse, like the whole street down. That's literally what it was.
It's like gun store, liquor store here. They got a whorehouse, STD clinic.
You really, like, this is blatant. Like, if you go here, then you go there next. Like, how can you? There was nothing. So, but in the versus the West.
Well, yeah, we don't have.
I don't know.
No, in European. the red light district comes from. Is it the Dutch or one of these Eastern European countries, or not Eastern European, just European countries where I don't think they outlaw prostitution at all. So they do have the red light district. That's where it originates from. So that's actually an import into Bombay, India. I would assume. Alhamdulillah, in America, we've still, prostitution's illegal in
Nevada.
Majority of places except Nevada. Even in Nevada, it's like very highly regulated.
Because we haven't fought hard enough for their rights yet. We can get there.
That's going to be a very interesting when the sex work guys get looped in with the feminist and the LGBTQ, and that's under the allyship of certain Muslim organizations. That then things will get really, really, really interesting for people involved. We don't have to get into that if you don't want to, Shaykh.
No, let's leave that.
But that's on the horizon. Maybe by the time this podcast is released. So,
may Allah protect us.
Did you have anything further you wanted to add?
Alhamdulillah.
Shaykh, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, man. I think my closing thought is just to preach, man. Our deen is beautiful. We have what we need. We have the preventative measures. We have the the gradual measures which help us to elevate in terms of who we are and who we can be and what we want to strive to be. But when we don't engage that, and we just want to live our life the way we want to live them, and not how the one who put us on this earth wants us to live. And when we rebel against God, and we say to ourselves, I'm going to live the way I want to live. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to enjoy what I want to enjoy. I don't want to be constricted. I don't want to be restricted. Islam and prayer and all of that. Yeah, that looks nice. But that's just, I can't do it. You could do whatever you want to whatever you put your mind to. Praying 5 times a day, it's not that hard. People say it's a struggle. Yeah, there can be a struggle, but it's not. It's just a matter of getting up and doing it.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is 80% of the battle.
Yeah.
Right. Just simply sticking to the formula that Allah, the one who has created us, the one that knows our weaknesses, the one who gave us a way of life to protect ourselves from falling into those weaknesses that He put within us.
None.
So just engaging in that manner, embracing it, being with good people, right?
That's a big one. Good company.
Being with people who are going to
one.
carry you in the right way.
Yeah.
Avoid company that's going to drag you down. I mean, a lot of people, they grow up with certain people and they went down the wrong path. There's a certain time to part company with people that even there's no virtue in being loyal to those that have went astray.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
You have friends. You grew up with them. And no, he's my friend. I grew up with him from kindergarten or first grade or whatever, and I'm not gonna abandon him just because he does this and this and this. I'm not saying abandon him, but meet homeboy on your terms, not on his terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
your terms are now the masjid. Your life is now about learning about your deen, progressing, studying with Shaykh such and such. Your life is about you've engaged in some stuff that you're not proud of, but now you're trying to turn things around. Bring him into that, but don't go into his world.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's some basic stuff, man. Unfortunately, we get caught up.
No.
We get caught up. And but that's life. That's the struggle, man.
Alhamdulillah. Life is a struggle, so struggle against it. Inshallah, it'll make you a better person. Jazakallah khair for the closing thoughts and being on the show with us today, Shaykh. Alhamdulillah. It was a great conversation, I think we had. And with that, this is Amr Mabrook and Munir with the Prophetic Mentality Podcast, and we are signing off. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.